All right, well, let's get this started this afternoon, folks. Thank you. I can make it live if you want to. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here to our East Metro for Social Justice's very first forum, and this one happens to be on the homelessness and affordable housing in East Metro, which includes Walton, Newton, Morgan, and Jasper counties. Again, welcome, everyone. We are so happy you're here. I would like to introduce our guest speakers here. The first speaker that will be speaking is Landis. He's the Vice President of Newton County Housing Authority and is a Realtor. Our second speaker is, let's see how I got it here, is Anniston. No, I'm going to put you last. Okay? The best for last, right, Anniston? Okay, and then the next speaker is the James Belcher. He's the Jasper County Democratic Chair, Committee Chair, right, James? And then after that, we will be calling on, let's see, okay, Clara Lett. Reverend Clara Lett. Oh God, here we go. See if I can pronounce this. She's the guardian of Gethsemane homeless shelter. She's the director of that, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And our last speaker, before our Anniston, would be Cindy Little. Cindy is the executive director of Fish of Walton. And thank you very much for all of our speakers. Before we get started and calling on our first speaker, I'd like to read the East Metro for Social Justice affirmation that we read before each of our meetings, which are every 2 weeks. And it really makes a lot of sense, so I'll read it to you. The affirmation today, East Metro for Social Justice is positive and engaged. We each have a role to play, and East Metro for Social Justice's success. No one is perfect, including me, for we each have something to offer and to share. Creative intelligence dwells within our group. Our team has integrity and passion. I value and respect everyone's opinion, and they mine. I understand that compromise is not a sign of weakness, but evidence of strength. When we empower each other, we know that we are empowering ourselves in the process. We accept challenges as opportunities, which become adventures that bring us closer together and closer to our goals. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. Helen Keller. And that's good job. That works out. Thank you very much. All right, so let's get started. Landis?
Okay, I got it.
You got it?
First of all, good afternoon. Great crowd. Could everybody give East Metro a big hand? My name is Landis Stevens. I am a resident of Newton County. I've been here for about 20 years. I sit on the board for the Housing Authority. I'm one of the board members with our authority. And also I've been planning chairman for Newton County before, up until 2021 for about 14 years. And I would say the most powerful thing you can do for to advocate against homelessness and to advocate for affordable housing, the most powerful person out of any politician, any mayor, any commissioner is guess who? You. I spent countless meetings, planning meetings throughout the year where they talked about residential housing, multifamily housing, and several of those meetings there were 0 people in the audience. So as much as we want others to come together to help, your voice is powerful to all of the commissioners, to all of the councilmen, to the planning committees, to the zoning committees. Your voice is very important. With the Housing Authority, we have, let me talk a little bit about them. We have between 750 to 800 residents, ages 0 to 97 years old. Less than 2% of our residents collect welfare, believe it or not. And that's with our Housing Authority. 25% of them are disabled. 65% of them work. They're working. The other ones are retired. They work at your local schools. They work at your local industries. They work at your local food services, retail, medical offices, hospitals. So the face of our residents that live on the authority might not be what you might think. I know the common thought is everybody that's a part of the, that are residents in the authority are Section 8 parents or single moms, but that's not the case, believe it or not. And we've seen more and more seniors because the need for residential housing for seniors is growing as things change and things get more expensive. 50% of them are children. We've spent about $1.2 million on remodeling some of the units that we have throughout, but as time goes on, we will continue, and we have continued. Affordable housing, with the term, people think crime. I know a lot of times there's this sway in our community of Newton County, because I've seen it all, where as soon as you mention multifamily housing or affordable housing, you think crime, but everybody needs it. They need it. And a lot of the biggest barrier, believe it or not, on times I have seen, when people come out to meetings, is not people advocating for affordable housing, it's the people against it. So it's very important that all of us get engaged, share your voice, and share your need. And as a realtor, on the real estate side, houses are expensive right now. I mean, I've seen homes where they were, when I first came to Covington, 170, some of them are now $300,000-400,000. And the average single mom or the average couple, they can't afford that. So we have to do something in the community to look at those key points, look at those issues, and say, hey, how can we provide housing for all of our community? Last, I'm gonna skip down, zoning and building requirements that match and need for Newton County. We need that to protect the need for housing, meaning that we need to have stuff in place where if we're gonna have multifamily housing, that the county is okay with it, the city's okay with it, whether as far as us not battling each other, whether it be the county or the city, to provide that housing for everybody. So a lot of times you'll see where, I know when I was on the planning board, there were ideas that would be floated upon, but sometimes the local jurisdictions wouldn't get along with the idea. So it's important that everybody's on the same page and realize that the need for affordable housing is key. So that's my 2 cents and I'm done, I'm sorry.
Stay there are gonna be some questions later.
Okay.
Next speaker would be James Belcher, please.
I'm Jim Belcher. I'm the chair of the Democratic Committee of Jasper County. I've not been in that position too long, just since last summer, but Jasper County is a very red county, and we're trying to let people know it's okay to be a Democrat. There were 10,000 people in Georgia last year that were homeless. Many, maybe a third were in Atlanta. What's the HUD definition of homeless? There's 4 parts. People living in a place not meant for human habitation, in emergency shelter and transitional housing, or leaving an institution where they stayed temporarily. Secondly, people who are losing their primary nighttime residence, including hotels and motels, within 14 days. Third is families with children or unaccompanied youth who are unstably housed and will probably continue in that situation. And fourth is people who are fleeing domestic violence. Now, there's a bill in Atlanta right now, Senate Bill 62, that is trying to criminalize homelessness. The bill they want to confine homeless to designated spaces, which sounds to me like internment camps. Local officials who fail to comply could face legal action from the Georgia Attorney General or a private citizen. It does not include a cap on the number of times a person can file suit against the city for allowing people to camp in undesignated public spaces, like under a bridge or in a park. Last year, there was a Senate study committee on unsheltered homelessness, and their recommendation was to oppose criminalization of homelessness. However, law enforcement would be allowed to make arrests based on existing laws regarding housing status. Any bill that addresses homelessness should include guaranteed or affordable housing, rental assistance, eviction protection, and mental health treatment. In Jasper County, the main way they deal with homelessness is the sheriff takes them to the next county. There's really no mental health. We have one facility that may be able to help, but that's it. I worked in Clearwater, Florida about 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, and I took care of a park downtown. It was the park that hosted concerts and other events, and the main library was located there. I had the opportunity to interact with many homeless individuals who were regulars at the park. Many of the regulars were homeless by choice. Those that did not want to be homeless were able to find services that helped them. In Clearwater, they had a pretty good system. And again, this was 20 plus years ago. About once a week, an organization, I believe it was a church, would have a feed at the park where a nutritious meal was provided. My boss at the time instructed me to inform that organization the feed was not allowed at the park. The people always disposed of their trash properly and never left a mess to clean up. Somehow, somehow I was always late to the feed and was never able to inform them that it wasn't allowed. And everything went on just as it should. All the homeless had a story, and as you got to know them, they would share that story. One man worked in carnivals his whole life, and many of the small carnivals were closing. He had been hit by a car and had a fairly large settlement. He actually had over $100,000 in the bank. So I asked him, why do you want to live on the street? And his answer was fantastic, I thought. He said, I've always been a carny. I like being around carnies. And the homeless community is as close to the carny community, and that's the kind of people I want to be around. And he was fine. Another of my favorites was a very intelligent man who just didn't trust the government. He had worked his whole life in different jobs. He seemed to me as being extremely intelligent. And so we were 2 blocks away from a Social Security office. I said, let's go to the Social Security office and get you signed up. And he says, no, I will not take any money from the government. And I explained to him, that's money you paid in your whole life. But he just would not take any money or sign up for Medicare because he just didn't trust the government. We also had people with mental problems and addictions too. One young man believed he was Jesus Christ. He was only at the park a few days, but his face got so sunburned, worse than I'd ever seen. When I asked him if I could give him some sunscreen, he refused and said he wouldn't be there long, as he was just waiting for his father to take him home. And he wasn't there long. I don't know what happened to him. Before I started at the park, we had a regular that was a paint hopper. His favorite was silver paint. We knew when he was around because we found empty cans of silver spray paint. He died at the park. With the problems we see today and the cost of housing skyrocketing, homelessness will continue to get worse at an accelerated pace. Most working class Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and one major expense can put them on the street. Not only that, but greed both corporate and individual, is driving up the cost of housing at an alarming rate. People who can afford their rent this year may not next year. That brings me to affordable housing. What is affordable housing, or some people call it workforce housing? Well, you look at available housing cost in a specific area, and my area concerns Jasper County. Median home price is $325,000. To qualify for a mortgage, you need an annual income greater than $75,000. And many of the support people in Jasper County, such as hospital personnel, first responders, teachers, wait staff, or retail employees, make nothing near that. A new teacher's salary in Jasper County is under $38,000 a year. They would be lucky to qualify for a mortgage of $125,000, and there are no homes available at this price and no rentals. Put another way, affordable housing should take no more than 30% of one's income. That includes monthly payments, mortgage or rent, utilities, taxes, and insurance. That means the new teacher can only afford $950 a month to cover his total housing cost. Where can you find something for $950 a month today, anywhere? Now, why is this important? If there's no affordable housing, it is hard to attract employees that serves the area. Teachers are in demand everywhere. Why would one come to Jasper County if they have a long commute? Even if workers decide to commute, their tax dollars are going to other places. Sales tax, including lost, splost, e-splost tax, are moved to other counties. Property taxes are gone also. I'm about done. I'm not a preacher. I've been going to a lot of county commission meetings, and there I'm speaking to an adversarial audience. It's so good.
Yes.
And there's one of our commissioners that's trying to do the right thing. She's tremendous. Arguments that I hear against affordable housing in Jasper County. One, we want our county to remain rural. We demand zoning requirements to require 5-acre lots and 1,800 square foot homes minimum. Secondly, people for affordable housing want to bring more cancer into the county. That was actually said at a commission. The only way senior citizens would want to downsize is to assisted living or a pine box. That was in the newspaper in a letter to the editor. Cheap houses would ultimately be turned into Section 8 housing. People who want affordable housing want to bring in Democrats into Jasper. That's a reason to have it. Affordable housing to them equal workforce housing, equal overcrowded slums, and more crime. These are just a few of the ridiculous reasons heard at the Board of Commission meetings and in the newspaper letters to the editor. These same people complain about high property taxes and lack of service. They advocate turning down free money such as grants because there may be a matching aspect. You know, they might want, have a grant for $1 million to help infrastructure, but they may have to come up with 30%. So we don't want the other 700,000. That's how they think. Bottom line, things will always change. There are ways to manage growth without restrictions who can come here based on income. It is a long, hard fight, that we must win for the survival of all. Thank you. That's the first time I've heard applause after I speak.
Thank you, James. And I like the comedy, too. The next speaker is the Reverend Clara Lett. Let me get this right, okay, Clara, because first of all, I got to pronounce this again. But she's with the Garden of Gethsemane. Right? All right. Yeah. I used to do this for a living, right? And that's in Newton County. I failed to mention that. So, yes. You're next. Go ahead. And you can be as funny as he is.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's a blessing to be here to talk about the passion that I have for this community and others on the other communities, other counties. I see a couple of my partners in the house, surely. And one thing I would like to say, it's so great that we can partner and work together in this community for the same purpose and the same cause. So I take my hat off to those that work as hard as anyone else. Everybody do the same thing and provide services to those that's less fortunate than some of us. Our mission statement, our mission is to minimize the impact of homelessness and facilitate the restoration and broken families relationships by sheltering, feeding, and promoting literacy within the homeless population of Newton and surrounding counties. And some of those surrounding counties with Newton, but we start off serving, it was Rockdale and Newton, and then we had Jasper County and Walton County and Morgan County. And there again, we all work together for the same cause. Back in 2001, the Lord laid upon my heart, I always had a passion for helping people. My mom used to say, I would take my head off and give it to someone. I never understood that till now. But anyway, how the shelter really got started, and so many people throughout this community don't realize how it got started. Well, I used to get calls. How many here remember the Chris Motel? Well, I used to get calls from the police department, and when they have found someone that was homeless. And my church is in Rainbow Covenant Ministry located in Porterdale. They would call us, and at that time, the hotel cost was $35. And we would take a check and go up and put that person into a room. Well, we decided one day to take one of the rooms downstairs and make it for a room instead of putting money in the hotel. Well, that began to grow, and I remember the first person that we served was sleeping in a bus out in Oxford, Georgia, old bus. He passed away at this time, but he had a serious heart condition. And when I have a position here in this county, I went to him and he provided services to him. The next person, and I'm not gonna go through 100,000 folk, but the next person was, I got a call from the city of Covington, and that was a woman that had been sitting in the probate court. And at the end of the day, she had nowhere to go. So they carried her to the city hall, the old city hall. Well, I got a call, and I asked my son to go with me. So I had cooked some biscuits and steak and biscuits that night, and I decided to wrap one up and carried it with me. She was in a wheelchair. My son picked her up, placed it in the car, and I gave her that biscuit. She ate it so hard because she was so hungry that I couldn't hardly drive because of the tears that were flowing. And she was in a wheelchair. But so, I want to thank this county and this city for embracing homelessness with each and all organizations. It's a blessing. But the Garden of Gethsemane may serve an emergency shelter in the beginning. However, with the overwhelming numbers of individuals needing long-term assistance, the transition shelter was also formulated in order to meet the growing needs of the community. The church had to make renovations such as remodeling of classrooms into bedrooms, the installation of shelters and emergencies, safety, equipment, and other things that we had to add to the church in order to make room and space for those that was homeless. The church soon became a site for women and children, and 2 residential home site was leased for the men there in Porterdale, Georgia. And after that, the church housed 25 to 30 women and children, while the men's house accommodate was 23 men and 1 rollaway cart. That was then located there in Porterdale. Also, the city of Covington, and everywhere I go, I tell the world that this city had a big heart, and the mayor at that time was Sam Ramsey. And one night, Sam and Becky walked into the church just to come and see. And after they came, he began to get on the journey of locating a place for the homeless. And that was so awesome. And in 2009, we moved over into Covington for 3 buildings that the city paid $1.8 million, additional $200-some thousand, giving that grant to the Covington Housing Authority to become our lease. Our landlord. And from that time on, we have been able to continue to serve those. Now, homeless, they have really grown since 2001. Tremendous have grown. So now what we see is a growing rate of homelessness in our community. As I heard was stated, that counties would bring them to the other county line and they would drop them off there. So many times, especially anybody here from Rockdale, they would bring them to the Elmer Station, bridge there, and they would drop them off. But we served them for 18 long years. And I just learned from our city attorney that, that we have to serve everyone, all population. I just learned that. And sometimes without knowledge, you just don't know. But anyway, they would come and serve. They would come and bring them to the counties, and the county would pick them up and bring them out to the shelter. But there at the shelter there, 7133 Turner Lake Circle, is our main site, the Garden of Gethsemane, where we have 3 buildings, can sleep 82 people. It was 110, but now 82. But at this time, it's 62 due to, we have a building been down. It was a tornado that back in the 2020 that took down one of our buildings. So that building is being restored and getting ready to use soon. I know all of us would not like to see anyone be homeless or be without housing. But let me share this with you today. It can come to anyone. It can hit anyone, community, anyone housing. We had a doctor, a certified doctor, that slept in Porterdale when we was there. homeless. She was homeless. She was down in a personal care home, and she wasn't being treated right. So, but the bus driver that always carried them different places shared with her about the shelter there in Porterdale. So one day I started getting these checks from Social Security with this person's name on it. And I said, who is this person? I don't know. I was getting ready, it was down to about 4 checks. I was going back over to Social Security, where I'm a sole representative for Social Security now. And she showed up. She was suffering with some blindness, and nobody liked to be mistreated or treated wrong. So she ended up staying there at the shelter. She had a brother that also was a doctor out in California. She began to get better, and one day she said, I'm gonna move on. She had worked with, I can't think of the doctor's name, but she had regained her sight. Now also, she had a car that had been in storage for years in Jackson, Georgia. She had her furniture, and she moved on. And every so often, she gives me a call and said, Clara, I'm still okay. So it's those stories that you hear people have left the shelter and can be gone for a long while, but they'll think about you and they will give you a call. And I always said, did you give me trouble? And they said, no, I didn't give you no trouble. But I love what I do, and I thank all of you for all the support in this community, how you have embraced. We couldn't have did it without you, from the food, the clothing, the monetary donation. We couldn't have did it because we don't get grants. Ain't no big grants out there for us to get that we know we don't have a grant writer. So it has been, Mayor, nobody but the hand of God that have kept those doors open. God bless you.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Clara, that was very nice. Next speaker is Cindy Little, the Executive Director of FISH of Walton. Cindy?
Good afternoon. It is a joy and pleasure to be with you and to see all these wonderful faces, and most of all to see the concern in your face, because concern and love for the fellow man and woman is what it's going to take to get through this. FISH stands for Faith in Serving Humanity. And this, my friend, has helped us many a time with some tough cases. And that's the thing, working together. FISH was established 32 years ago by a group of pastors that came together from all denominations and said, hey, you know, it'd be great if we could all pull our resources together to help those that are in need, to be one voice. Together we do more. And so that's how FISH started. And in the beginning, they had a thrift store, and we now have 2 thrift stores. And those thrift stores pay all the overhead of FISH. Those thrift stores are a lot of work, I'll tell you, but they're a big blessing. Yeah, I earned every one of these gray hairs, thank you. So I have been with FISH 21 of those years, and 3+ years of those as a volunteer. The thing about FISH is that we have different tentacles now. Where we started out in a little storefront, we had a food bank, we had the little thrift store, and then we helped people in emergency situations with rent and utilities and mortgages, and then we'd help them with their prescriptions to help pay their prescriptions. FISH now has a Fish for Kids program. We feed 2,100 children a day during the summer, door to door. We put it in those babies' hands. We've been doing that for about 16 years. And then we also do backpack buddies. We have 1,800 children in Walton County that receive food in their backpacks on Fridays so that they've got something for the weekend. We had a little guy that got off the bus every day, and he'd ask the teacher for an extra bag. And she asked him, why do you ask, and it's empty, to put his little bag in, to double bag it. He said, because I bury it so that the adults won't take my food. So if it's only that one child that we're helping, it's worth it. We also help the school system. We have the Foothill School that is after school for the kids that, some kids are working now during the day to help mom and dad make it. And so they go to school at night, and that's at Foothills. Some of those kids need a sack supper every night, as well as they get what's called a Big Kids Backpack Buddy for their weekend. We also make sure these children have hygiene items as well. So the school system calls us whenever they have a family that's hurting with a light bill, or either a child that's a great athlete but cannot afford the equipment or what they need to play the sport. We go and get it for them, whatever they need. We have a soup kitchen. When we first started the soup kitchen about 5 years ago, we were like, do we really need a soup kitchen here in Walton County? Well, you know, God has a plan, and ain't no doubt about it. So we were feeding 10 to 15, 3 times a week. And now with this homeless situation and how much it has grown, we feed 60 to 75. And these folks are very thankful for their food. And then we have a free medical and free dental clinic. We also have a fitness center. In that fitness center, they get a lot of devotional time as well as workouts. We've had more than 2 to lose over 100 pounds through this and get off their diabetic medicine. So we're very thankful for our medical and dental. We did it in a roundabout way before we had the free clinic. And the way we did that is we had doctors that would partner with us, and we'd pay them a nominal fee to pay for their office visit or whatever, so that they could get that $4 med. There is nothing that has hurt my heart more than anything to see a beautiful African-American woman in her mid-40s come in with her little side drawn and her mouth drawn from having a stroke, because that baby couldn't afford the doctor visit to get a $4 medication for her high blood pressure. And so I'm very thankful that now we don't have to do that. So the local hospital at Piedmont Walton has been very gracious and supplied us with a nurse practitioner, and they pay for her because in the beginning they are a nonprofit hospital. We have for-profit hospitals there, and I got really upset one time with the CEO and said something to what I considered a friend. Y'all got to remember, just because they don't have on their work clothes, they still working, some of these folks, you know. And I said, you know, this country girl just gonna say it like it is. I said, somebody needs to get off the pot if they're not gonna get something going. And that's the way I feel about it. If we're not gonna get off the pot and make a difference, then get out of my way, you know, because these people are expecting help. So anyway, that CEO at a yearly annual chamber meeting got up there after he did bring those people on board to help us. And I'm sitting in the back not thinking anything, and he says, well, he said, I'm here because somebody told me to get off the pot. I went under the table, but in that time I was praising God and saying, thank you, Father, that even in my ignorance, you can still work. But when you love your people and you love your community, that's what it takes, guys. It takes true grit. And you're not going to always be appreciated. And when people see me coming and say, oh, crap. I told them, I said, what I want, the one person that I want saying that is the devil when my feet hit the floor in the morning, right? So the other thing is our shelter situation is really crazy. We don't have one. The reason that we don't have one is we don't have any kind of bus system. We don't have any kind of transportation system.
I'm not sure I understand.
Let me explain that again. The reason. So, the belief that we have is transitional housing. We want to get these folks where they need to be. My biggest challenge right now, y'all, is the sickest of the sick who are homeless. We had not too long ago a guy, family pulled up at the Waffle House, put him out in his wheelchair with all his stuff in a parking spot and left him. And bless his little heart, you know, the police and I have a really great relationship. I'm on call 24/7. And when they call me, we get them put off the street, get them in a room. Y'all, I have got one right now that we helped get open heart surgery. He can get housing. We've got rapid rehousing set up for him, but there's nothing affordable. We're looking everywhere. So we're keeping him in the motel. As of right now, his motel bill is over $9,000. We have spent, since the end of September, over $100,000 on motels and keeping these folks going. The Salvation Army in Athens, their men's shelter is closed right now. And that has been traumatic to all of us. We talk about homeless, and there are different flavors, if I want to say that, of homelessness. You do have those that choose to be homeless. okay? We've got one lady, and she's nutty as a fruitcake, just like I am. And we're kind of kindred spirits, but she chains herself to a bench every night so nobody will take her. I told her, I said, Carol, honey, I love you, but if they take you, they bringing you back, baby. Don't worry. But we make sure she has food. We make sure that, we now have a shower that's a buzz in, buzz out. We have a washer and dryer. So she lets me know when she needs to get a shower, be prepared. It's a 6-hour shower. But that baby's clean. She's got that time to wash her clothes and everything like that. Then we have a gentleman that has edema in both legs. Both his legs are this big around from the knee down. And they're weeping constantly. He changes the dressings 3 times a day. I am trying so hard to get him into a place. We've got him set up for rapid rehousing, but we can't. The motel with him is way over $12,000. So when the weather's pretty, we put him back in his car for a few nights, you know. And then I've got a doctor, I started to say a pediatrician, but that's not the foot doctor. What's the podiatrist? The podiatrist. He's a great man, a good, godly man. That he's coming to see him in the hotel. I put him back in the hotel because it's been cool the last few nights. He got kicked out of one motel because he cries at night because the pain's so severe. And bless his little heart, he said, I promise you, Miss Cindy, if you can just get me back over there, I'll put a rag in my mouth that night. So I had a mom and a son, and we had them at our Monroe Motor Inn, and he was working across the street at Popeyes, but he's a little slow. Mama's back was in bad shape. She finally got approved, got back surgery in Athens. And so she was staying for rehab there near where the old Hobby Lobby is, if y'all know where that's at. And so we showed him all the different shelters that were there. Well, he had a little drinking problem, and so what he did was he got his mom's debit card for her to let him go get something to eat. And he got behind the Chevron station there, and of course there's a lot of drug activity there, and he was murdered 3 weeks ago. So we've got these really sad stories that it hits you right in the gut, because what was my alternative? I had an officer call me one night. He's in tears. He says, Miss Little, I've got a really sad case here. He said, I've got a young man, he's in the back of the ambulance right now, he's not gonna make it. They're doing CPR. And I've got his 93-year-old mother laying here on a cot. She's covered in fleas, roaches, her feces, her little dog's feces. He said, what do I do, Miss Little? So what we did was they condemned the house that night, made her go to the hospital. It took the hospital over an hour to get all the fleas and everything off her. She weighed 83 pounds. I am very happy to say that she's now in a nursing home, weighs 123 pounds, loves the food, and is doing really good, but her son did die. And so that's another thing that you find out. You end up being a place for ashes. I have 4 sets of ashes of the homeless people that have given me as well. It is really hard for me as a human being to see these folks go through this. I'm not good with politicians. I don't care, red, yellow, black, white, or purple. I don't care. Impoverished genocide because someone is poor, they can't get proper health care, is ridiculous. Yes. I mean, it's ridiculous. And some of these folks that are too busy choking on their silver spoon need to wake up.
That's right.
Because any of us, like we were talking, any of us can be in this situation. People that have mental illness, and I love break the stigma. Just because someone is homeless or poor does not make them sorry people.
That's right.
You know, all of us can be on hard times. Being raised when I didn't realize we were poor because the love that was in my house. We had what we needed. You know, I didn't know your car's supposed to break, you know, everybody's car breaks down all the time, doesn't it? You know, I mean, we were walking, all 5 of us kids with mama down the street many times, you know. So now when I have a car, I'm so thankful, you know, that it runs. And people say, oh, but don't you want this fancy car? Hey, it got wheels and the motor's going. You know, you learn these things. You learn humility. Some of these folks that are so sick scare me. I have a woman that has had several blood clots, and I'm telling you guys, we're really in a time where I've got a bottleneck of people, but there's nowhere for them. There's no affordable housing. All I see in the paper is upscale townhouse. Well, what is that gonna do? Okay, because them folks in the upscale townhouse, who gonna wash your car? Who gonna wait on your table? You know, who gonna wash your clothes? Because with the gas prices, they're gonna have to go somewhere else, and they're not gonna be in town to do these things that you want. There has to be an awakening. There has to be a soul searching, a revitalization, a revival of the heart. Because these are human beings.
Yes.
And I can't stand it when somebody tells me a mentally ill person can do better. I'm like, are you kidding me? They're about to make me mentally ill. I'll just tell you. I just really want to nut up on some of these folks that are so heartless and so uncompassionate.
Yes.
I mean, we've got people dying in our streets, and we ought to be ashamed of ourselves.
Yes.
There are really good people. I know people that worked in the mill houses, worked in the mill, made that mill what it was and what carried the city of Monroe. And now, bless their hearts, they're in these little mill houses. Well, over here comes little Susie Q gonna fix this place up and sell it for $300,000. Now little Pete and little Repeat sitting over here, and their property tax are tripling. And they're on a fixed income. They get $30 food stamps. Social Security's not going up. Pension ain't that much. So, I mean, guys, we've got to find solutions. We've got to find not ears that open, but hearts that have got to change. Amen. You know, because I told them, I said, yeah, I think a lot of folks have to have a little brewery or some beer joint on every corner because they got to stay drunk because they can't live with themselves at night. So anyway, I just want y'all to know that it's time for a change.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, and I'm here, and I see it every day. And I see the look in children's faces that have been sleeping in a truck at night, and they're afraid, and teachers crying because they're fearful for their students. That's not how this is supposed to be. So we are family. God said we were created in His image.
Amen.
Okay? And we gotta get together, y'all. So thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for listening to me. I hope I didn't get too far out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy, that was nice. I'm sorry my phone
That's okay.
made a comment.
It needed more
Are you
explanation.
gonna nut up on my phone?
Phones are too expensive.
That was good. All right, last speaker. I've been waiting on you now. Anniston Winston is a rising senior from Social Circle High School, and she got in touch with us late this week and wanted to speak with us, and I got chills. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Annie. I'm 17, and I
Annie,
go
would you
to-
like
Speak
to
up,
use this?
speak up, just
Speak
mic.
up.
Yeah.
Or use the microphone, there you go.
Does that work?
Let's
I
turn
don't
it on
know
real
if
quick.
works. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. It's on, it's on.
Hold it right up to your face.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Don't worry about it, we're all friends, right?
You okay?
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna pretend like I'm presenting a Google slide.
Most of us don't know what that is.
Anyways, hi, my name's Annie Winston. I know that it says Anniston Winston, but it's just Annie. I'm 17, and I go to Social Circle High School in Walton County, which is like right on the cusp of Newton County. And there's really no way to sugarcoat what I'm going to talk about today, and it's that Newton County, Jasper County, Walton County, surrounding areas is facing an extreme housing crisis, with the number of those who can't afford the daily necessities of housing, food, and water rising incredibly quickly. Things we take for granted are becoming more and more difficult to obtain, with the rising cost of living, rent, and groceries. Oh my God, sorry. Sorry, I like repeated a line, sorry.
The mic's on, just hold it close to your mouth.
Yeah, just,
Oh,
yeah,
wait.
put it right in.
Hold it right up.
Is it working?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Give her a big hand.
In desperate times, some may look to a housing authority as somewhere they can stay safely off the streets and from the elements in harsh heat or cold. However, this option comes with an astounding 2-year wait list, driving many of those who need such a valuable resource away and back onto the streets. Living on the street has also become a difficult challenge for the homeless, as more and more anti-homeless structures being built, such as benches with armrests, underpasses being lined with spikes, and artistic installments that don't allow for anyone to get any kind of comfortable rest on them. Besides the street and a housing authority with a ridiculously long waiting list, there is only homeless shelters that they can turn to for a warm meal and bathing needs. However, at these limited homeless shelters, payment is required just to stay for taking a shower and brushing your teeth, you know, basic things like that. Many want to solve the ongoing homelessness issue in Newton, and one way we can start is by granting more funding to shelters for their needs so they will no longer have to charge nightly for citizens to stay. Instead of using taxpayer dollars to clear land and make room for factories and apartment complexes that'll be $1,500 a month, we should use those dollars to fund a new housing authority, which would greatly decrease the waiting time and amount of people that are homeless in Newton County. The homeless have been ignored too long in Newton County. We as a community have forgotten the privilege we have and have ignored those who are less fortunate than us that fight to survive every day. It is time that we use our privilege to help our brothers and sisters find their way back on track, and we cannot do that if we keep blindly ignoring this ongoing issue.
You okay?
Yeah.
You did a great job. So nice to have young people involved in
Yes.
the parents. Are you,
Yes.
you should be proud of your daughter. You should be very proud of your daughter for getting her here doing that for one thing.
Yes, yes.
And now she's learned how to speak into a microphone. She's learning something every day.
Yeah.
All right, before we get into the questions, which I have a few here, if you haven't filled out your card and you would like to ask a question of our panel here, please fill it out and give it to one of our people in the back. They have the M4SJ, the black t-shirts with getting in good trouble and all that on there. You hand it to them. I'd just like to recognize a few people that are here. Let's see, let's start out with Nancy Schultz. Nancy, I was just told just now that you have won the Newton County Chamber of Commerce most prestigious award, the R.O. Arnold Award. You just received that, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Nancy. She's Newton County, District 3. And J.C. Henderson is here. He's the District 4 Commissioner. Hello. Eddie Johnson sitting right down next to him. Eddie's with the Board of Education. The Mayor of Covington, Steve Walton. Okay, Tyrone Brooks. There's Tyrone Brooks. He's here. We got some questions here. And, okay, let's, remember, we have to get out of here. No, I'm just kidding.
Pass the hat to take up.
There are, yeah, well, okay, there's some good questions here. Let's see, okay, Clara, this is for you. We'll start out with you. Where do most of the residents come from to your shelter?
What, most of the residents, as I folks stated, that we have grown tremendous since 2001, Newton County.
How many residents do you have right now? I think you mentioned that, right?
Right. Well, I didn't mention what we have right now.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, right now we have 34, and we also do the 2 women center sites.
All right. And one more for you. How many mothers and children are there at this time? Did you have there at this time?
I can give you a report on the population served from 12/14 to February the 1st. Women's was 758, men's were 856, children was 132, making a total of 1,746.
Wow. Okay, this will be up for anybody who wants to answer this one, okay? What is the one thing that an average citizen can do to help address the issue of homelessness in our community? Landis.
I would say go to every city council, every commission meeting, every planning meeting, and advocate. Advocate, speak your voice, let your voices be heard. You put them in office, and you can take them out of office. So it's very important that if you see what's going on, that you get them to advocate on your behalf of you and your community.
Thank you. Okay. There's a couple of good ones here. Is the Habitat of Humanity model successful, and how could it be improved? Now, I've heard yays and nays on that question. Is there anyone that could address that?
I can actually address that.
All right.
We did have a Habitat of Humanity model in Newton County. It has foundered and it has been disbanded. There is a 3-county habitat south of us. I think Fayette and Spalding are part of it, but I don't have the paper in front of me. That one of their board members has moved into Newton County and is very interested in annexing Newton to that 3 consortium. That is a very strong county. They actually have an agreement with Wayfair that anything is returned, whether it's brand new, unopened, or whatever, goes directly to their shop. Is anyone here familiar with that group? But anyway, they are hoping to annex it in Newton County, and they have 3 different ways. They say people love to do, the raising of the walls, like a raising of a barn, but he
Yeah.
said really the most thing that this person is interested in is in refurbishing, like providing HVAC or fixing up. We have an area of city of Newton County that is historically African American, and many of the people who bought there don't have the money to do the upkeep on these older homes that are necessary to keep them safe zoning. So they're kind of looking at that. It's very quiet. It has not been approved, the goal, but I'm just really excited myself to see that this is something that's gonna help with people who are being evicted because they can't fix their homes.
When that happens, this is the question I'm thinking of. When that happens, to volunteer for that, what does it take to be a volunteer?
Well, you have to talk to Habitat. I'm not there. And they're not there yet, so don't.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I would like to help out. I
And,
would like to volunteer.
then, they will be delighted to have you.
Whenever I think of Habitat, I think of Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
It's always, his face is always there, it's just really.
Yeah.
On that note, I just want to add, one of the things that Laura just made me think about, people living in the housing authority that are elderly, a lot of them cannot take care of cleaning their place and taking care of things. We're seeing them get evicted because their homes get so dirty. So we're now starting a seniors in crisis program where we'll go in and clean up for them. So there's a lot of things that you have to think about with our elderly and our sick folks, that they can't do those things.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I didn't get your name, which?
Laura Berkman.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, what is causing the high homelessness, what is causing the high homelessness in Newton County? Homelessness.
Greed. Lack of housing.
Lack of housing,
Lack of
okay.
affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Yes, that's
Affordable
true.
housing. Now, housing
Because
affordable.
like for right now, we have 3 RVs. I need RV sites to put them on, to put these people in, to help with transitional. I have 2 houses that are really run down that we were gifted, if you wanna call it that. So as we're starting to renovate it, do you think people want it renovated? No, they want them torn down. But we need the housing more so. So we're trying to refurbish them. So they would rather a cute little $300,000 house go in rather than you make this a cute little place and use it for transitional housing.
Thank you. I have another one here. What do we need to do to stop the housing authority from evicting residents, especially when they are on a fixed income?
Well, majority of time, if it's something going on, if it's a criminal act or some activity, we're kind of mandated through HUD, depending on what it is. There have been countless cases where there have been issues and crimes, and they've kind of worked it out with law enforcement to keep the people there. But if it's a situation where there's a crime involved, our hands sometimes are tied.
Oh. Cindy, I got a question. Would Cindy Little come to Jasper County and speak at the commissioners meeting? You would do that? Okay.
First Monday of every month,
Okay.
6 o'clock.
This is something I've been interested in a little bit too. In Newton County and surrounding counties, exploring tiny home options to transition homeless people to tiny homes, like they have done for homeless veterans in Atlanta. Is Newton County and surrounding counties exploring that? the tiny homes?
It's been talked about,
It has?
throughout, I think over the past 5 to 10 years. Nobody has really explored it as I think they should, but there have been people that have talked about it. There have been conversations around about it.
Right.
It's just getting the developers and people to want to do it. And again, getting the counties and the cities to drive that train to have people to come here and actually do the job.
To qualify for something like that, what would that be?
They can do it different ways. Some builders use tax credits, some builders use their own monies, but you have to have that community push that want it. If they're advocating for it, it will happen.
You have to have property for it too, right?
Yes,
Because
property
some
for it
people, like
too.
you say, don't want it in their neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I will
In-
say-
In Macon and Warner Robins, they have started doing that.
Oh, really?
And that, you know, would be a good model to build on.
Interesting.
Walnut Grove High School is fixing to start an initiative where the children learn to put in HVAC, is that what it's called? Heating and air, just say it like this. Electric and everything, and they're gonna build from the ground up on a mobile surface that can be moved. So they're gonna start building these little modular homes that we will be able to pull into a trailer park. And so that is one of the things, I'm very proud of Walton County leadership that is behind that. So, and that's gonna give these kids an opportunity to give back to their community, but to learn such incredible stuff as well.
There's a grant called Youth Build that, you can look at.
I'm not familiar with, well, I'm not gonna be able to get to all the questions, I'm sorry, but I wish I could. The RPH program, what is it?
Yeah, rapid rehousing.
Okay, accounts to increasing homelessness, why is this program being done? That was one of the questions
A lot of what, the people that I've been able to get on that rapid rehousing goes through Advantage Behavioral, the mental health area, and it's for the mentally ill. You have to have some sort of diagnosis with that. Is that wrong?
That's not RPH.
That's not RPH, okay.
Yeah.
RPH is specifically for people coming straight from incarceration.
Okay.
And it's
So
that
that's not rapid rehousing.
there, we have 3 approved facilities in the county for RPH funds. Currently, are they paying a month at a time or 3 months?
3 months.
It's 3 months, but we just heard the money's gonna be cut. Because if you think about it, coming straight from incarceration, you've lost, almost always, you've lost your house, you've lost your job, you don't have medication, you don't have the clothes you had. What they're hoping is that RPH will help with recidivism. That they're placing them in an approved housing place, one of which is Pastor Lett's shelter, where they can be fed for a limited, fed and housed and given some assistance in basically kind of coming back out into the world skills. And then they can transition from that into other housing.
Right now, what we are doing, because I know that was a great concern in the community in reference to that, we got called many names, but we are working with the Resource Court of Newton County and Walton County and COVID Circuit. That's what we are working with.
Okay.
Want me to say?
Oh, yeah, go, sure.
I think one of the concerns was the probation had access to RPH sites throughout the state. So they could release someone who wasn't from our community and put them in RPH housing in our community. Then if they didn't follow the rules and they were put out of housing, they were in our community. What the shelter's done now is they're only taking RPH candidates who are involved with the accountability courts in our circuit, which means that they have a tremendous amount of oversight, regular drug screens, surveillance, that we're working very, very hard to help them be out. Our accountability courts have really amazing success in helping
Yes.
people get their lives
Yes.
back on track.
Yes.
And I do understand that was a huge RPH concern, but at least for one of the 3 facilities, I feel like it's been addressed.
So what are we doing for the RPH residents that are being, not remaining in the facility, that wind up on the street?
Amen.
Because, and I say this because I've been going around and feeding the homeless, and what I've learned over the times of doing it is they just want conversation. Like one of them said, I just want a little chin wag. Chin wag is the talking and your chin moves. And what we found in asking the questions and learning more about them, the majority of the people that we have come in contact with are felons and are from the RPH program that have been placed back out onto the streets. So in that situation, what's the next step? If we're addressing homeless, what's the next step with them?
It's a,
Go ahead. No,
It's-
that's fine, go ahead.
it's a problem. It's with the accountability courts, which is something I'm involved with, I can tell you that we're trying not to put them in RPH if we don't have a plan for what to do after. And we're talking about it every single week. But I do know there are people that probation is putting into RPH housing, and once their housing time is up, there's not necessarily a clear plan, or if they don't follow the rules of housing. If they're not in a court program, there are less restrictions and mandates on what they have to do. If they go into RPH under an accountability court, they have to stay clean, they have to be receiving their mental health treatment. Otherwise, they're gonna be terminated from our court and they'll go to prison. They're not gonna be on the streets. But the RPH ones that are not in a court,
And some of the RPH people are not from Lincoln County.
no.
They're from other states.
No, I can only say that the RPH issue from out of county has been handled and addressed at the shelter. The other two, I can't tell you.
But a sex offender would not be in that category.
Sex offender would not be in that category.
Because right now, we have a hotel that is full of sex offenders. Because it's in the only parameter that's not near a church, not near a playground. And see, that's,
Yeah,
you know, big issue.
absolutely.
I want to help you to understand that, the shelters have guidelines. And each person that come in there, whether they RPH, they have to follow those guidelines. If they are unable to understand it, we have someone to help them understand the guidelines. We have to help everybody to be safe. Our volunteers that come have to be safe. The employees there have to be safe. So we give people opportunities and chances. But if they don't take it, and then our next rule is through the courts. If it's something different, call their PO. First thing, you call their PO and report their actions or whatever the problem may be.
Right.
And they make the decision. We have to let them know, we don't just release someone to the street without their PO knowing it.
It sounds like a bigger problem than just the RPH program. If you got the POs who know their people are on the street, and some of them are sex offenders.
Mike.
We said we weren't gonna take questions from the audience, and that's fine. We just don't wanna get it into a big debate and take forever. And nothing, I don't have anything against that, but we, you know, everybody has, it's a Saturday, whatever. Yes, Juanita?
I'm Joyce Smith, the CEO of Repairs of the Bridge.
Oh, okay,
We are running into a problem.
okay.
We feed these people, they're in the woods, and these homeless people come out. We have gained, I don't know at the people, we started off with about 25. Now we're experiencing about 30 or 40. These people are in the woods. And we are providing meals a hot meal for them every night. And it's just growing out of hand, and a lot of these people are not from Newton County.
Right.
They are from Boston, Pennsylvania, everywhere. And, you know, It's just really growing, and Newton County has got to come together and work on this problem.
That kind of goes back, I read in the New York Times just a couple of days ago, that there's people applying for housing, getting on waiting lists now from
New York.
all over the country, all over the United States.
Yes.
And it's like, if you're on the waiting list, you're gonna be there for a while.
Give them 2
You know,
years.
so, and that goes to this question, how do you qualify for affordable housing?
I know for, the housing authority, you have to follow the standards of the government as far as whatever they deem.
For that
as-
particular
mhm,
county or whatever, right?
Well, for the state
For the
or for the
state.
feds, it all depends on, some people have vouchers, it just varies. And also the state also has affordable housing vouchers that they give people through DCA, Department of Community Affairs as well.
And like veterans are getting, the veterans that we've been helping, because we had at one time 26 veterans at the Wits End, almost. Their voucher, $700. So where are you gonna find anything to rent for $700? So,
Okay, here's an interesting one. Are there any plans or talk of plans to build a new housing authority? And it also says here that the newly built affordable senior apartments are not affordable. So, they're not?
I mean, that's just my opinion, though.
Okay, I mean, this is good information, I
Either
didn't
more
realize that.
than people's, retirement income would be, or disability income would be, and.
And she touches on a good point, because like, that's one fact that people don't know. We didn't build those, the authority didn't build those, sometimes those are private buildings, developers. We might sign the bond, but they actually build them themselves.
And even with the rent being on some of those affordable apartments that have been built, $800, $850, you gotta have 3 times the amount for your income in order for them to even qualify you for an apartment.
What about the folks that are staying in hotels? The money they spend for that, for those hotels off of I-20? You know what I'm talking about? I mean, that's.
Because we had several people to move into those apartments that they had to end up moving out.
Right.
Because the increase of the rent.
Just as an FYI, you may already be aware of it, it's not terrifically helpful, but it's kind of helpful, is the Department of Community Affairs is offering the ERPA funds, whatever that means. It's being offered through the county and through some independent organizations, and they will do an application that's online, and we're looking for volunteers who will help people who don't know how to use a computer to do it, but they'll pay back rent up to 6 months, I think it is, and mortgage. And so if you know people, you can refer them to that county website or line, and they can refer them to where they can get help to apply. But that will take care of people who are in danger of being evicted for mortgage or for rent. They're two separate programs.
All the best thing coming.
I beg your pardon?
All the best thing coming this year.
Oh,
We'll make sure you get hooked up.
hello, yeah.
Well, is there any COVID money
That's
that
the last.
was earmarked for something like this?
That's it.
That's that money right there.
Yeah.
And there's probably plenty of that left, don't you think?
Yeah, well,
Not-
4.5 million in each one of these pockets, I think, is what
Okay.
it is for our area, but there's not plenty. They've spent, Commissioner Henderson, is it like over 700,000 in the past 2 months or something?
It's been several thousand, but I
Yeah.
think the total we had, at the first point, we had like 21 meetings. We would go into the housing projects, and people were behind their rent, we would pay it, done through our representative, Ms. Kennedy, who was
Yeah.
in Michigan.
Our paramedic.
Yeah,
Our paramedic
Yeah.
consultant.
yes. And so this was, to me, what it's all about, helping people. But they have not been helped as fast as I would like. That's why I said, come to me, and I go straight to them.
You made the offer. There it is. Let's see. Well, I think we have time for maybe a couple more of these. Let's see, there was one good question here. Homeless people are often perceived as to be substance abusers, mentally ill, or mentally challenged. However, many homeless have suffered financial setbacks and are completely functional. Should the groups be treated differently? Should those groups be treated differently?
yes, to a degree, because you've got to be handling someone that's mentally ill, especially a schizophrenic, paranoia kind of person. you've got to be a lot more compassionate and give a little bit more leniency to someone that's able to work. What we're seeing is single moms, kids got COVID and couldn't go to work, got fired, because, you know, the grace period, people aren't showing grace anymore about that. And so that person, you're gonna be able to get them a job and get them up and out. A mentally ill person, you're not gonna be able to do that to. They're not gonna be able to get a job or whatever. So you gotta do a lot more hand-holding with them than with that mom. That mom just needs that leg up, that's all, and encouragement.
Yeah, with viewpoint mental health right now, the intake is frozen. So that means less services people do less services for those. And crisis, crisis is from 8 to 2, but you have to know what the crises are. Because what we consider crisis is not crisis to them. And so in the lesson, you understand the viewpoint mental health side of it and their guidelines. What we call crisis, someone walk in, just 2 weeks ago, I had someone to go in, I made an initial call to them, knowing this person needed services. But once they got there and they did the evaluation, and the evaluation was done there in the lobby for as looking at the paperwork, not even taking them back to the back. And so they called me back and said, well, it's not a crisis. She's not want to commit suicide or want to harm someone else. That's not a crisis. So that person, we carried them to Piedmont. And that Piedmont, they had to call the authorities and put them back on the streets. So you still got a person that hadn't been properly served. We see that a lot.
Yeah. And if a mentally ill person gets 1013, they go to Augusta for 3 days and then they're back.
That's it.
You know, bless their little hearts. They may get some new meds down there or whatever, but
They're not stable.
that's not the solution.
Reverend Lett, here's a question. Is there a nightly fee to stay at the Newton County homeless shelter?
A nightly fee.
A nightly fee?
If you are employed, yes, there is. Our guideline, we looked at the Salvation Army and some other shelters back in 2021. In the beginning, it was $10. If I don't pay my light bill, we get cut off. If the city and the county not giving us funds, we close down. So that's gonna be a bigger issue. So, but yes, if they are employed, it is $15 a night. If you come in, do intake, you have no income, you have no social security, none, then yes, it's zero amount. Until you give you opportunity to get you a job, and we have transportation that will get you there to look for these, to search for employment. We have those that partner with us in the community, like Jim Stab's Restaurant, Ingles, Food Depot, and others, Longhorns. But you can take the horse to the trough, but you can't make him drink it.
That's right, that's right.
And a lot of people don't understand. Most people, they won't work. They won't work. They will not work. There are those that we get everything set up, and they will leave before they will go to work.
Any idea why?
You really want to know the truth? Lazy.
Hard to feel sorry for them, you know, people who just
And
waste
as long as you keep giving, they'll keep taking.
They'll keep taking.
And that's the hard part, and you know that, when we have to draw that line, it's not always easy, especially if it's 20 degrees outside.
Yeah.
But, it's tough.
And they get 3 meals a day. They get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Snacks is all the way out. They got showers, we have tubs, they have washers, they have dryers, they have all the amenities. They have those things there. But still, I believe my mom raised me up like this, and my dad. you have some responsibility.
Yes.
Take some responsibility. If we continue to pull the responsibility from these individuals, we just gonna have more and more homelessness. Cause they're not gonna take the initiative to get a job.
Looking for a free ticket.
Some are,
Yeah.
but not all.
Not all,
I'd
not
like to
all.
mention one thing, the repairs of the breach, the church that I was once with, we would, on a Thursday, we would go in and we would make, some meals, I think that some friends of mine have been part of that. They do a great job. And I
Yes.
really, we should, well, folks, it's about time to wrap this thing up, and we so much appreciate everybody being here. I was looking at the audience as they were speaking and the questions, and the interest is here, and I appreciate everybody that's been here with us today. East Metro Social Justice, this is our first one, where we plan on doing more in the future. We just have to work out and see what a good subject would be for us to have something like this again. But we do appreciate it very much. Oh, yeah.